And we're back in the car on a Friday night drive home like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Friday evening here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. Well, yet another generational, foundational, touchstone, not the company, movie that I have inexplicably not really talked about in any large extent, no episodes centered around it. But I was, again, thinking in terms of what are some more of what I consider to be great movies that I just haven't really gotten into. And since it's the season, we're getting real close to graduation season, why not talk about Mike Nichols' seminal classic 1967 drama, The Graduate, starring one of the greatest film actors who ever lived, Dustin Hoffman. And Dustin Hoffman is somebody I've mentioned frequently on the channel, talking about Rain Man and discussing Marathon Man on a number of occasions. He's the most versatile actor of his generation, of the kind of four giants of their era: Redford, Beatty, Nicholson, Hoffman. Dustin is the most versatile. You could argue that Jack is the best actor of the four, although I think Dustin might still be the answer to that question. Dustin Hoffman, though, in the right role is magic. There is almost no one who could hit roles as hard across as wide of a range, where even for a kind of a smaller guy, he knows how to play menace, he's great with comedy, and he really knows how to get to the heartstrings. In a movie like Rain Man, he somehow manages to make Raymond Babbitt immensely likable, although there is no change to the tenor of the performance. It's all the technical proficiency of the actor. Well, at the time of The Graduate, Dustin Hoffman had been in some movies, but he was still, it's so stupid, he was still collecting unemployment. I think there's a picture of him actually getting an unemployment check just as The Graduate was getting ready to come out. Man, the movie business, as John Travolta says in Get Shorty, man, the movie business is rough. I got to get back to Loan Shark and take a rest. But The Graduate is also one of the handful of films which helped to usher in new Hollywood. It changed the movie business. And I mentioned in the episode about, speaking of the Four Kings, Warren Beatty's birthday, how Bonnie and Clyde was probably the key film, if I had to name one movie, which helped to kind of get rid of what was known as the Hays Code, or the old production code with Joe Breen, and usher in a different kind of censorship with the MPAA, but at least you could go a little bit further, 3 steps forward, 2 or 2.5 steps backward, depending on who's telling the story. But if Bonnie and Clyde is the most important pre-rating system, pre-MPAA, Motion Picture Association of America, Jack Valenti, the man that no less than 3 NYU film professors in 1995 called him a fascist. They called him a fascist. I could not believe that, and I guarantee you they would still call him that today. I thought that was a little bit of hyperbole, but they were simply saying he's in favor of censorship. Therefore, 1 + 1 = 2. I feel like it's a little bit more complicated. I don't see Jack Valenti in as stark terms as all of those professors in 1995, maybe some in 96. But if Bonnie and Clyde was the key film, the most important film, as far as let's get rid of the Joe Breen era, the Hays Code, and let's do something else, the second most important movie is Mike Nichols' The Graduate. And Dustin Hoffman is one of those, I guess you could say, lucky people who always looked younger, significantly younger than his actual age. I mean, Marathon Man, the guy is pushing 40. He still looks like he's in his mid-20s. You can't teach that in an acting class. That's genetics. And yes, Dustin Hoffman, big exercise person. You can see the fitness level in various movies if he has to take his shirt off or something like that. But he looked the right age for this. And in the manner of Siskel and Ebert joking their way through the 30-year anniversary of The Graduate, when they reviewed the film and said, the film has a lot of dated elements. It's still, the performances are terrific, but the way that time plays tricks on us and the way that memory works, and Roger Ebert talked about this, and I can identify it. Ebert was born in 1942. He was about the same age as my father, maybe a couple of months younger, and Roger, unfortunately, has been gone. Man, he's been gone 13 years. It's just awful. And Gene Siskel's been gone 27 years. It's just so sick. Man, I love those guys. But when Siskel and Ebert talked about The Graduate, and they get past, some of the dated elements, plastics, all of that, Roger said when he first saw the movie as a very young man in his middle 20s, he liked it. He thought it was good. But he didn't understand, why is Dustin Hoffman's Benjamin Braddock, why is he monkeying around with that old woman? The Anne Bancroft character of Mrs. Robinson. Here's to you, Mrs. Robinson. That's where the song comes from, just in case you didn't know that. Why is he messing around with this old woman? Catherine Ross is fucking gorgeous. What is he doing with the mom? Fair enough, to each their own. Ebert and Siskel are yucking it up in that episode because where Roger went with that was watching the movie now for the first time in at least 25 years. I'm looking at Mrs. Robinson. She's the babe. The daughter is okay, but that's who I'm going after, Gene. And man, what a great moment. Just the way that Roger, he's laughing, he's almost blushing. But what The Graduate, on top of the historical import, another thing that it gets right and that I can personally identify with is when you graduate college and you did not graduate with a specific major that immediately translates to a specific profession where you can right away start earning a good living, or how about any kind of living related to what you're doing. Well, now what? Now what? And so in the world of the movie The Graduate, Benjamin Braddock, the Dustin Hoffman character, is in a similar situation to where I was and what I was doing, which was that I was living with my father. My parents had split. My mom did not live in, she didn't live in Florida yet. She still lived in Massapequa, the house where I grew up. And my parents, I should point out, were very amicable. It was not a negative situation at all. But I was not under any pressure. And you can say that's a good parent, or you could say that's a bad parent, again, depending on your personal perspective, and in some cases, your experiences when you got through college, or if you're my age and you have kids going through it. There are no right or wrong answers, I don't think. But I didn't have very much pressure on me at all. My father just wanted me. He was happy that I graduated New York University now, almost 29 years ago, and he let me go my own way. But the understanding was, he's writing, he's working, he's trying, he's interacting with people in Hollywood, and I'm going to give him time. I don't need to put the squeeze on him. I don't need to put him into a vise. Let him do his thing. Well, in the movie The Graduate, to some extent, that's what Benjamin Braddock is going through. But whereas I believed 100% I'm going to be a huge success as a screenwriter, I knew what I wanted to do. I was doing it. I was writing and working feverishly. Benjamin Braddock does not know where he's going, literally, figuratively, symbolically, and metaphorically. And he mostly just sits around doing nothing in the summer after graduating college. And many of you who are my age, or even you could say 20 years younger, there is something to be said from a conceptual standpoint. When you finish school and you realize there's never going to be any more school. Sorry. Now what? It's a very strange sensation that you've never had before, and you're never going to have again, unless you go to grad school and then you'll have it again. But Benjamin is at sea. He's just not sure what he wants to do with the rest of his life. And his father, played very well, I might add, by William Daniels, he tries to kind of talk to him and, give him a little bit of leg up. You could work for the firm, whatever it is. He's not threatening him. You start making money or you're out on your ass in 2 weeks. No, he seems to be more like how my dad saw things. This is a net positive. My father didn't think I was ever graduating college at all. He had thrown in the towel on me. So the fact that I got through NYU, this is the greatest thing. And we'll give him as much time as he needs. Just leave him alone. One of those. But Ben doesn't know what he wants to do. And at a party, ostensibly celebrating the fact that he is a newly minted college graduate. The wife of his father's business partner, played by Anne Bancroft, who wasn't really that old when she passed. She was a fucking boss on screen. What a great actress. Mel Brooks' wife. Mel is now a widower, of course. Mel pushing 100. But Anne Bancroft was a home run hitter in almost every role, right on into the 1990s when she plays, I think she plays Nicole Kidman's mom in a movie I've discussed on the channel, Malice. And man, is she good. Like, she really brings the pain in that movie. She has some scenes with Bill Pullman where you're like, good on him that he was even able to hold his own with her. She's just fire on screen. G.I. Jane, it was never going to happen anyway. Her scenes with Demi Moore, just awesome. But Benjamin Braddock has not shown any particular interest in the wife of his boss's business partner. That's who Mrs. Robinson is. He knows her. Maybe in some fevered adolescent fantasy, he got himself off thinking about her, but we don't know any of that. We just have to suppose a lot of stuff and fill in gaps. But what we find out at this party is that Mrs. Robinson has had very serious thoughts about Benjamin Braddock. And she quite simply wants to start having sex with him. You want to call it an affair, you can call it an affair. But it just looks like two people, consenting adults, having sex. And they start having a lot of sex. You can, and you're supposed to ponder as this is going on. Why is Benjamin okay with this? You can argue, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong. You can argue that he should have had enough wherewithal to wriggle his way out of the situation. It doesn't speak that well of his character. The fact that he lets himself, I mean, it's hard to say he gets manipulated into having sex. That's really pushing it, right? But it doesn't speak very well for him that he so quickly kind of succumbs. I mean, she doesn't drug him. She doesn't do anything. There's no mind control. She's not doing Jedi mind tricks. And she's not Jack Nicholson in The Witches of Eastwick, possibly doing some kind of devilish trickery to convince Cher to have sex with him. I'm convinced that he does something. There's something screwy there. No pun intended. But Benjamin and Mrs. Robinson started having an affair. And when I first saw the movie, I also was a little bit like, I don't get why he's doing this, but I wasn't looking at it from the perspective of the morality of it all. This is not okay, not because she's so much older, because she's a married woman. This is the wife of your father's business partner. Bro, turn around and run. Don't do this. No, I wasn't thinking that. I was looking at it from the other perspective. And while that's going on, and he still hasn't figured out what he wants to do with his life, the college degree only goes so far, right? Even in the 60s, you still have to do something. The wife's business partner's daughter, Elaine Robinson, is coming home, and Benjamin has to take her out. They got to go out. And Mrs. Robinson, at this point, as nice as possible, says, look, just blow it. Don't give her any ideas. Don't lead her on. Just screw up on purpose. You know, don't do anything terrible, but just, you know what I'm saying, Benjamin. So then Ben starts to have a problem thinking to himself, well, wait a minute. I'm good enough to be having sex with you, but you don't want me going anywhere near your daughter. You know, it's almost like the idea of you're not good enough, and therefore I'm not good enough. I don't really think that Mrs. Robinson is capable of the level of self-reflection that would take, but the die is cast. Just keep Elaine at an arm's length, keep her at a distance, no problem. But of course, because it's a movie, and it's a movie that is trying to push the envelope at the time of what they could get away with. How far could Mike Nichols go? How far can he push it where he's going to be able to get very heavy content? People having affairs, a guy hooking up with a mother, spoiler alert, and then the daughter. And now what? the movie then goes from there. And Dustin Hoffman's performance, this is one of the key performances. And each of the four kings, in my opinion, has at least three performances where, if it's not what you would call incredible film acting, it is the perfect match of character and role. And that is something that's very important, because as I pointed out, Robert Redford did not have the acting range of Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson, or Dustin Hoffman. But that is not to say that, for example, Robert Redford in The Natural is not as impressive as Jack Nicholson in Chinatown in its own way. Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate, this is one of the key performances to understand why. Because if you see him as an older actor, if he's in a supporting role and just kind of fucking around a little bit, it's hard to understand just how good this guy was, how great he was. And this is one of the key performances. He runs the entire gamut of emotions, and the level of desperation that he shows at various turns, it doesn't feel like he's acting. It feels like he's living the events. And he's the only one in the movie where you're getting this from. Anne Bancroft delivers her lines in a very theatrical manner. Murray Hamilton, I love Murray Hamilton, right? He played the mayor in Jaws. Fucking guy. He played the mayor in Jaws, the man we all love to hate in Jaws, and he's really, really good in a kind of an unsettling, creepy, almost supporting role in John Frankenheimer's Seconds. He plays a character who was friends with the main character. It's almost too complicated to explain. The main character in that movie starts out being played by John Randolph and then is played by Rock Hudson. And Murray Hamilton plays the best friend who can't be the best friend because, bro, you've been dead for 5 years. How are you my best friend? You're not the guy. No, I'm not dead. Go fuck yourself. But Murray Hamilton plays the husband, the cuckolded husband, to use a social media term, describing this scenario. And man, is he good. He's also really good in the movie The Hustler, the OG with Jackie Gleason and George C. Scott and Paul Newman. So with all of these plot threads spinning in every direction, Mrs. Robinson wanting to continue the affair with Benjamin, not wanting to get caught, but drawing a line in the sand saying, keep your fucking hands off my daughter, almost literally. Just stay away from her, bro. Aren't you getting what you want with me? Well, no, he's not. He doesn't know what he wants. He is adrift. And I guess if you want to give him a little bit of a pass because he's so at sea in life, I'll give him a couple of percent. But I like to think that even in his circumstance, a better man would have turned around and walked away. And this is a legitimate philosophical debate about this movie. Not a question of the movie itself, but putting yourself in the shoes of the character and thinking about what would you want to do. Because there are some people, and again, no judgment, that would not have any compunction whatsoever, none, about hooking up with a really hot woman, whether or not she's married to your father's business partner. I don't give a shit. Okay. But I feel like Benjamin wants to be a better person than he's shown in the movie. And so the story then takes the form of a doomed romance, and not in the manner of Brief Encounter, although there's kind of elements of Brief Encounter, the idea of the forbidden love. But in the case of The Graduate, the only reason why this is a forbidden love is because you got with a married woman, asshole. Kind of dug his own grave there. But it has the elements of this romance can't happen, Bridges of Madison County, that kind of thing. But ultimately, this is a story about lonely and damaged people trying to make connections. Mrs. Robinson is miserable, and she kind of takes her misery out on Benjamin. Benjamin becomes miserable. I don't think he's necessarily miserable as the story starts. And Elaine, with all of the contortions of having to see her mom go through this, knowing what happened, all of it, it's really more of a kind of emotional and gut-wrenching story than we're led to believe, because there is a very light touch in many of the early sections of the film, and many of, Dustin Hoffman has a lot of comical moments. Norman Fell as his landlord, he gets a few laughs. He's a funny guy, was later, of course, on Three's Company, so he has that kind of timing, although his character in this movie is not presented as a clown, he's a serious guy. But this is a very important film, as dated as it may be. And the irony of Bonnie and Clyde, because Bonnie and Clyde is a period piece, Bonnie and Clyde does not feel dated. The Wild Bunch, one of the first R-rated movies after the rating system hit, that also does not feel dated. It's a Western. It's set in the early 20th, late 19th century. The Graduate, though, is a fascinating historical artifact for all of the very 60s stuff that doesn't really hit anymore. But it's also important from the perspective of a great actor showing his stuff for the first time in Dustin Hoffman. And Catherine Ross had the one other huge movie, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, with the aforementioned Paul Newman and Robert Redford. She didn't really do very much after that. And she's worked sporadically, but she certainly had the talent to be a major star. Not everybody wants it, though. Not everybody wants to work all the time. Some people just want to go away, as Warren Beatty, by the time he hit 60, was already drastically cutting back his schedule, and he barely worked, at the end of the 90s and then into the 2000s, the 2010s, and today. Not everybody wants to be Harrison Ford or Clint Eastwood. Some people would rather be Sean Connery, and at 72, I've had enough of this. It's all done. Dustin Hoffman, another guy, still working. I guess he just wouldn't know what to do with himself if he wasn't working. But that's really all I wanted to say without, completely ruining the plot of this film. I feel like I already gave away too much. But The Graduate is on the list of films that in my opinion, that every film fan should see, because it tells a compelling story, a very relatable story, where you can kind of put yourself in the position of Benjamin Braddock. And do you think that you would behave exactly as he did and does? Or do you think that you would listen to your better angels and be able to move away from it? And then obviously the story spins in an entirely different direction. Like if this were a real situation, I'm sure something like this happened, has happened thousands and thousands of times. But, what happens if you push the mother away and then the daughter wants to hook up with you? The mother may still try to screw you over, no pun intended, because she was rejected. Yeah, I'm not good enough for you. Something like that. But a challenging film, a very emotional and at times painful to watch. Another thing you're not really expecting when you sit down. I know there have been movie reactors that thought the film was a flat out comedy. It's technically a romantic comedy, but this is the most serious romantic comedy that I can think of. And a really great time capsule, and just a terrific film that I do recommend that everybody see. So, The Graduate, directed by Mike Nichols. I think it was written by Elaine May. All of the names conflict. Elaine May wrote the just catastrophically bad Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty film from the 80s, Ishtar, but Elaine May knocked this one out of the park. So written by Elaine May, directed by Mike Nichols, and starring Dustin Hoffman, Catherine Ross, Anne Bancroft, Murray Hamilton, and Norman Fell, the newest entry in our continuing series of the great movies. I'll skip the exaggerated wrap-up. I hope you've enjoyed this look back almost 60 years. Jeez, my dad was a CPA. It'll turn 60 in 2027. The Graduate. So have a great rest of your Friday night, and I'll see you all again real soon. Peace.